Okay, so here we are. We're white against BloodyFox. We will play the move knight to f3. So some pretty strong players in general. I mean, we're not seeing so many challenges from, you know, sub 2000 level players. So by all means, do challenge me, irrespective of the rating. I'm playing against, happy to play against anyone. Okay, so here Black is going for these kind of modern setups. Very popular, very reasonable in the hands of experienced modern defense players. These kind of openings are very tough nuts to crack. They're very combative. I think in the database they have like maybe the lowest, as far as I know, they have the lowest draw rate. So yeah, this is a very good way to play if you're looking to sort of spice things up a bit. Here, what do? I think I can castle. Maybe I can't castle. Sometimes I struggle to remember the best move order against this kind of stuff. By sometimes, I mean quite frequently, because, you know, unless you're either blessed with a great memory or you're reviewing your opening theory very regularly, neither of these are true for me, because there's so much to review. I'll review some lines here and there, but in terms of reviewing very systematically all the time, yeah, it's too difficult. So here my concern is, no. So this is the line, Queen E2, I believe. The point is, if you go Rook E1 here, then sometimes there's some Knight takes E4, Rook takes, and D5 ideas. But if you defend with the Queen, it's a little bit different, because now the pawn on E4, if he goes Knight takes, I take. He doesn't have D5, because of course I could just take that. If I defended with the Knight, then he may have the exact same motif. So Queen E2. And he goes E5, which I think is a little bit premature to play E5 like this so quickly. Usually, I had this in the tournament game not so long ago. I think they castle, then you go Rook D1 or C3, and then they put the bishop on G4. Because this bishop sometimes, when white has more space, as I do here, than black, it's often a good idea to try and get rid of some pieces. But black has gone... I think actually, in fact, the precise move order is first bishop G4, then you defend, and then, yeah, and then maybe E5 or castle, something like this. Okay, E5 has been played immediately. I guess I could go Rook here, but maybe he would just transpose now with bishop to G4. So I'm going to try and do something a little bit different. I'm going to take the pawn on E5. And I'm going to see if I can take advantage of the fact that I think the theory involves bishop to G4. I'm going to see, can I take advantage of playing without that, the fact that he played without that move. Knight takes E5. Now I'm going to go ahead and take. And now I'm going to go, well, Rook D1 makes a lot of sense to me here. Just getting on the open D file, and I'm expecting the move Queen E7. And I'm not sure that I achieve much, which means that I should probably afterwards look at the theory of this line and see where I could have improved. But for now, I'm going to go Knight to C3. And my threat is, in some situations, I'll plant the knight on D5. I'll argue that that's a good square for my knight. But I don't think he has to worry too much about it. For now, if I go Knight D5, he can just exchange the knights. The position is quite good for him, or quite acceptable for him. And the other thing is that if I, let's say, were to play a move like bishop G5, he could then respond with C6 when Knight D5 would have become a threat. But he's gone C6 immediately. And I'm not sure if this is the best approach. I think it's very reasonable to play like this. But what I'm trying to do, and I don't know if I'll succeed. What I'm trying to do now is I'm going to try to push this pawn in some situations. Maybe provoke a move like A6, provoke some dark square weaknesses, and then I'm going to try and take advantage of those dark square weaknesses because of the fact that his dark squared bishop here is out of play. You can see for now. And so one of the ideas is just a5, a6. My concern about this though is he can just, if I put the pawn on a5, he can ignore it because if I ever go a6, he'll go b5, and then this pawn on a6 will become weak. So I'm going to take a different approach. I'm going to go b3. For now, the position is solid, and I've also opened up this diagonal. So I create a thread of bishop to a3. That would force the move c5, which he doesn't really want to do because that would leave the d5 square weak. I can go bishop a3 anyway, which makes some sense to me. The only thing is if rook takes, I couldn't go rook takes, but I could take with either the knight or the queen. He goes there. Now I'll just take and put my rook on d1. And to be honest with you, I don't know if my advantage is so significant here. My pieces on the one hand, they look nice, but he may be able to go bishop to f8 quite soon. So unless I can find a concrete idea pretty soon, I feel I'm not going to be, I don't have such an advantage because he can go bishop f8, he can go bishop to e6, he can try to start trading off some of my pieces. So not so convinced. One plan that I could do is a5 and knight here, but even if I got my knight to c5, I'm not sure that that's it's hard for me to come up with a plan that convinces me. A move that I might like is a move like queen f3, so that bishop f8 is not possible because this guy would be falling, but queen f3 would run into bishop g4, and then I'm the one that has to lose material. So one idea is just to play h3. Just say, okay, I'll play slowly and see what you've got. And another idea is maybe to try and improve the placement of my queen with a move like queen e3. I'm sort of a conservative chess player and try to play moves that I think are, reasonably principled when possible, and sort of improve my position a little bit rather than speculate more with moves like queen e3. So just because of, I'm not sure which one is better, but I think this is a little bit more safe and seems more reasonable to me. So I'll go with that for now. Also, it's important to control this bishop so it doesn't have any bishop g4, it doesn't have any bishop f5, and probably its best bet is to go bishop e6 and exchange itself for my bishop. One argument against bishop e6 would be to go, or one possibility would be to try and go bishop d6 and create this thread, but he would still have been able to go bishop e6 because even if I then took this pawn, he would be able to go takes on c4, and when I capture back here, he would actually take this bishop on e5. So tactically, that's not an idea that was working. His biggest issue, the structure is very, very solid for him here. Oh, one other thing to mention is I could put the pawn on f3, but because I feel like this bishop, I mean, if the bishop was here guarding this diagonal and this diagonal, then I would play f3. But when I move this pawn, I'm weakening these two diagonals primarily. And I really don't want to weaken this when my bishop is not there. So I'd rather play h3 and go for this setup like this and keep this guy on a dark square, leave these guys on light squares. This one I think is more important just from the perspective of defending my king. So he goes knight h5, and this move at first sight feels a little bit suspicious to me because the move is saying, I'm attacking you. I'm the one attacking, and a lot of the time you can actually get away with this, but he hasn't completed his development. So I would have assumed, with an inferior bishop here than this one, because it's less active piece, and with no development completed here, it feels like, going for these active maneuvers is risky at the very least. But so far, I don't see any problem. And of course, if he can get the knight here, it's very nice, because then the knight might jump to very nice central squares. The knight on f6 for him was not doing so much. So if he can get away with this move, if it works concretely, then I think it's a smart choice. Okay, so, well, for starters, I'm anticipating knight f4, so I'm going to go queen f3 just to get Well, in hindsight, I don't like so much that move. I think I would probably, if I could take back time, I would go king h2. And my idea there would be that at some point I'll go g3 and I'll knock out this knight from the play because it won't have this central square of f4. And after knight f4, I might have gone queen d2. I feel like taking control of the d file, doubling up on the d file would have been a little bit more useful. Yeah. What to do? I could go knight e2 and say to him, okay, let's exchange these pieces. But I'm not so convinced by that. I'm not even sure why, but well, I guess what doesn't convince me after knight e2, he exchanges, we both exchange our not so great pieces. Then he goes bishop e6. And it feels to me like he's just exchanging a few too many pieces. I guess I can take, and go queen d3 though. And then I would control this file. But he can go, in that position, he can go bishop f6. So his queen will be here, my queen will be here. And okay, but I do have one idea. So I'm going to play knight e2 because I think maybe I do. So that whole line initially wasn't impressing me so much for white. He may not go for that line, of course, of exchanging everything, but it's a reasonably likely possibility, right? That I would go knight e2, that he would say, especially when somebody is playing a stronger player, they often are going for the lines. They're attracted to the lines where you're exchanging a lot of pieces. But not BloodyFox. He's the BloodyFox for a reason, right? So he's going for blood and he plays knight e6. He goes back. He doesn't exchange pieces. He argues, actually, after your move knight e2, if I put my knight here, it's on a third rank and your knight is on a second rank. So already my knight is a little bit better placed, a little bit more active. But on top of this, I have this d4 square. I still have these potential squares on the king side. And what do you have with your knight? Not so much. So I think that's his argument. And it's a pretty good argument. So I like his approach. Now he's looking to exchange the bishops. And now what I'm going to do, I could take, but what I don't like about taking is that exactly my knight is not a very good piece. How do I get that knight back into play? I'm not quite sure. So because of this, I'm going bishop b2 instead. And the reasoning is that if he now plays, in order to defend this pawn, if he now plays a move like f6, maybe I'll even have ideas like f4 here, cracking things open and getting my knight into the game. If he goes bishop g7, I can always play bishop a3 and argue I can then go back to this original option of capturing if I see nothing better. So I'm not afraid of bishop g7. I can always decide whether I want to repeat the position and ask him, do you want to repeat or do you want to just play the same thing? And if he doesn't do one of those two moves, I'm not sure how exactly he will defend this pawn. One way is to play a move like knight c5, just hitting my queen and also defending the pawn. But after knight c5, I'll go queen e3. And my queen, first of all, on e3, I think feels quite well placed. I'm hitting the knight on c5. So that's actually what we are going for in the end. And after bishop e6, I was thinking once again, will I be able to take this pawn? I guess not, because if I take it, he'll take here on c4, and then that's a discovered attack on my king, on my bishop. But one of the things that I like about having put my queen on e3 is actually it breathes a little bit of life into this knight. It might seem crazy to say, how does the queen being here instead of here improve your knight? Well, it's because in this structure, I don't really want to go here because there are no possibilities for the knight. I don't really want to go here because there's also no possibilities for the knight. So I have to try and be somewhat creative. One idea that I have is to go here and then go here. So the fact that my queen is no longer on d3 gives me this this possibility. So now I feel I have to exchange. What else to do? I don't want to go passively. I don't want to allow him to damage my structure. And I don't have a good way to defend because if I do that, he'll take the pawn. So I'm going to go ahead and take. Very well played game by my opponent, in my opinion, so far. One other idea, again, to be creative in solving the problem of the knight, is to go here and then reroute the knight this way. My concern is that once I do that, he'll put the pawn on f6, and I'll be back to square one in terms of the activity of my knight. So I'm going to go knight here because I think his knight is actually quite an active piece, and I'm just sort of saying to him with this move knight c1, I'm saying, you know, fair play. You've played the middle game better than I have, and I mean, your knight is a better piece than mine. So I have no better idea than to just try to exchange. Well, one idea that I do have here is f4, and the point is this guy comes under fire, and if pawn takes, maybe I have the move queen here. That looks at the very least quite attractive. And what can he do? I guess he can go bishop here. No, he cannot, because the knight will fall. And if he goes f6 and I'm able to play this, I'm going to bank on this actually being a slight improvement of my position. I immediately regret it though. I immediately regret this move. I think this is so risky for me because you know, my whole position becomes very vulnerable, wide open. So I'm not sure about this move f4 actually. I feel that what I should have done here is just something like knight d3. I didn't love knight d3 though, because rook d8 was a very clever move here, just hitting my rook and preventing this exchange. If somebody had guaranteed me that he would take and then queen takes, then it would have been a different story. It goes rook d8 anyway. This move surprises me. Can I not take? I guess what he wants, and then take? But what does he want there in that position? Check. I'll go king h2. And then he wants to take this guy, I guess. Fair enough. Fair enough. That is a reasonable plan. It's a very reasonable plan. So you see, I mean, I've opened up my kingside position. I'm not so happy about what I've done. Yeah, I don't really like my position at all, to be honest. And so now I'm sort of trying to go into damage control mode. But it won't be easy. Maybe I can go knight d3. But then he wants, yeah. Okay, and time is also an issue. It's a very serious issue. Okay, let's start with this move and maybe this move. How about that? 32 seconds on the clock. And I have an idea, but I'm not sure that it's working. But my basic idea is that if he takes, and takes this pawn, I'll go queen e5. And then my pieces are defended. Ah, no, but I cannot do this. Can I do this? Takes, queen here. Queen f6, maybe instead. Yeah, I don't believe that I can actually do that. And he's taken very, very quickly. So I would say he's quite underrated if he's able to sort of work that out so quickly. Okay, let's go here. And that's, again, a very good move, because if here he's going to take. Okay, so but this move I'm not so sure about, this last move. I should have gone king e4 rather than gone passively like this. Ah, I did not mean that. Well, my attempt is to flag here. To flag him, not myself. Okay. In the end, this position is winning because king here, h4. But the game was just really tough. I got totally outplayed in the middle game. I have to admit. So good game to BloodyFox. But I just here, I mean, I really felt, maybe I'm wrong, but I felt like, yeah, f4 was a terrible move, mainly because of this move that I was worried about, knight e6. I didn't even want to say it on stream, you know, but it was like knight e6. I thought bishop c5, and then, you know, my king is too weak. And the point is, after knight e3, he takes f4. This is really horrible. And if knight takes, then bishop c5. This I was really concerned about, so I would have to play something like this. But what he did was very clever as well. In this position, he went rook d8. And then, after takes, yeah, my move knight d3 is a big mistake. I needed to find something like this. But this is very scary. The point is, if you take, then queen takes e5 and life is good for white. And if you give this check, then my king is just about hiding. But it's so scary in this position. F takes e5, apparently the best move. And then something like this. And after queen takes here, I would actually be losing if I take that piece, because of the point is that here, check, king here, check, king here, check. If you go queen g3, in comes bishop g1. And if you go back to h1, I guess the point actually, sorry, is this check, here, check. By the way, I should point out, if you go back, then this is checkmate. So here, check, here, and now I guess either take or h5. Let's say takes is what it's saying. Block, check, king here, and now either queen takes e4 or bishop f2. Finally white's position is crumbling. Extremely complicated little tactics there, of course, far from forced, but white apparently has some kind of equality, but has to be very, very careful. Both sides have to be very careful. Nevertheless, had I seen this idea, I would have played it. I went here, and suddenly my position was very bad, and very, very smart move here. E takes f4. No fear of this position here. Queen takes, and either queen f6 or queen e5. This is the position I thought initially maybe I would play, but then I got scared because after queen d1, I realized king here will be met by bishop d6. I have to go to f2. And then I was just worried by the series of checks, including bishop c5, which might be best here. And the point is, this position here is really, really very bad for white. He's down a pawn and his structure is very bad. But what do you do if you don't take this this piece? If you try to go to g3, then in comes this check. And, well, what else can you do? So, crazy sharp game, and really, I mean, just fantastic play from my opponent, from what I felt was a bit of an uncomfortable position. Not sure what the best approach. Maybe b3 is what the engine is saying. Now, first like this, and then after c5, only now knight c3, where you have good squares for your pieces. This makes some sense. But anyway, a dirty win, a messy win, but a win nevertheless. Okay, so now BloodyFox, I don't think you were lost. Oh, 16, move 16, knight g5 was a killer here. After knight h5 here, oh, not knight g5, but rather knight b5. Yeah, so this is actually what is funny. This is a very nice point, BloodyFox, that you're bringing up here, because while I was commentating on the game, I said knight h5 doesn't feel to me like the right move here. It feels too risky to go make an aggressive move when you have this situation here, especially with your undeveloped queen side. Better, as I was saying, a move like bishop e6 and solve this problem. But although intuitively, my assessment, my intuition was correct, and that this move was not good, my ability to punish it was just not there, because I didn't have the tactical vision to punish it. So that's sort of the two big components, right? You can have just general sort of intuition and kind of playing by feel, playing a position by your feeling, but then, you know, concrete calculation and tactical opportunity, do you see it? And here, I did not even, I wasn't even 1% of the way towards spotting this idea. It did not cross my mind for a second. And I think if I played this position several times over, I would not have gotten knight b5. But it's a beautiful point. The point is, if you take here after bishop takes b5, the queen is actually out of squares to guard the last rank. And if you go here, then this check is fatal, because after bishop here, at the very least, I can pick up this piece. Otherwise, the knight is finally, you know, from being a very passive knight, it uses tactics, and now it creates crushing threats. After knight f4, now we can just move the queen, maybe to the original square, maybe here. And the point is, still this issue remains. And what do? Black cannot withstand this threat. So maybe it's best to take, and basically the position will collapse. So very nice tactical motif there.